Welcome to this interview on Gabon 24. We are here at the Radisson Hotel in Libreville discussing environmental protection for the One Forest Summit. Today, I have here a special guest. We are going to discuss about forest protection. It is Michael Berger, is the CEO and Secretary General of the Pefc. Hello, Mr. Berger.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Let us go straight into the subject. Why are you here in Libreville, and what do you think of this One Forest Summit?
So we are here, first of all, because French government invited us, because we have, as PFC, a certain role here in the forests in the Congo Basin. As PFC, we are operating globally as an organization to protect forests, to support sustainable forest management of forests. And Africa, the Congo Basin, is one of our key work areas. And just recently, we included the Congo Basin system to the PFC system, and the Pefc Congo Basin can operate as a PFC system and offer certification to the forest owners.
Okay, can you tell us more about the name PFC and how do you work? How do you do your certification and the process? How do you do that?
The PFC is platform for the endorsement of forest certification, and it describes the way how we operate. We are an association according to Swiss law with 54 national, so-called national governing bodies, national certification systems. And those national certification systems are assessed whether they comply with our international rules. And if yes, then they are allowed to operate on their national or regional level as PFC certification system. So we operate as an umbrella organization dealing with the national, with the local initiatives, since that's one of our key elements that we can only operate with local people, with regional people.
Okay, so it means that the local government has to be willing to work with you.
Not necessarily the government, local stakeholders. Ideally, the government supports this. And here in the Congo Basin, of course, we get some support from the governments, not in the same way from all governments, but generally it's behind the organization, yeah.
Okay, but what can you say about Gabon and its efforts into that climate change, fight against climate change and so? What do you think about the effort Gabon is doing now?
Well, Gabon is fascinating. Gabon was our first African member in 2004, if I'm not right. So 2004, and they developed the system by their own for several years, and now are part of this Congo Basin initiative. And in Gabon, we had a certificate, the first African certificate for PFC in 2018. And that's fascinating. And the Gabonese government is supporting forest management in general, not PFC, but not just PFC, but forest management, sustainability, climate mitigation by forest management. And that's fascinating to see that. And I'm happy that I'm here in the country for the first time to see this.
Okay, what is sustainable forest management for people to understand? Because you say it, we hear it a lot, we don't know exactly what it is.
Well, that's a pretty complex question. To reduce it to very simple terms, it covers the triangle between social aspects, environmental aspects, and economical aspects. So that means to manage a forest in a way that all those three, or these three main criteria, are somehow recognized and implemented in the forest management, so that local people can live with the forest, from the forest. In the biodiversity, the environmental aspects are protected, and of course the economic aspect for industry, for local people, should be considered as well. And this is reflected in rules how to do forest operations, how to go to the forest, how to harvest, how to replant, how to treat a forest. That's actually reflected in those rules.
Do you think that we can develop African countries without cutting the forest or without touching to this biodiversity, because there is now a kind of debate about it. People say that white people come in Africa, they say don't cut the forest, but we don't know how to progress, to move forward without cutting the forest. What can you say about it?
Well, that's of course a very difficult question, and I'm not sure whether anyone except African people have the right to answer this question. Because if I say yes, it's possible, I imply from outside a way of managing your forests, your countries, which is questionable whether that's appropriate. What organizations like PFC are doing is to offer tools to say, look, local people, local communities, if you operate like this, you can protect forests, but you can get an income from the forests as well. You can get an additional value also for your social and for your economical activities. But the decision at the end of the day, that's something that needs to be taken by local people.
Okay, but what is the part of the human being into the whole process of certification? Because we know that you are going to the forest, you show local actors how to cut the wood without destroying the ecosystem. But what is the part of, we have pygmies people here, for instance. What is the part of the human being into the whole process?
You know, in 1993, I started as a very young person my PhD at the Forestry University in Munich. And the part where I had my office, I had to walk each day along a door of a professor with a big sign at his door. And he was saying, forests are not about trees, forests are about people. And that should be reflected in any kind of forest management and certification. It is about people. It's of course it's important just to have a forest and to have trees, but people, I have to admit, I unfortunately don't know a number how many people in Gabon are living in a forest and from the income from a forest. But managing forests without people is absolutely impossible. That's destroying culture, that's destroying economy, that's destroying ecology. So people are the essential point of all these considerations.
Okay, now it is said by experts that the Congo Basin forest is becoming the first lung of the planet, ahead of the forest of South America. So, do you think that now, what is the difference for you, for instance? What is the difference between what has been done here in the Congo Basin and what has been done in Brazil? Do you think that we are doing better, we are doing more than what is done there?
Well, I don't want to judge who's doing more or less. You know, that's depends on lots of conditions. That's mainly depending even on a political framework in a country concerning the awareness. How do governments deal with forests? What role has forestry governance in a country? And I guess we all know when we look at Brazil and the last 8 years, how the government acted in Brazil with the previous president, when you compare that with how, for example, in Gabon, the government is operating, I guess it's easy to identify differences between this. But that's a political playing field that's quite challenging, and where we as an organization don't want to judge you are doing better than you or you're doing worse than you.
Now I want to come back to certification. Can you tell us, like step by step, from the wood, from the forest, how the certification works? Like the story, does it start from when you cut the wood, you transport it, you put it in Gabon? We have the special economic zone of Coq. So what is the process?
Well, the process, when you start at the very beginning, the standard development is the first step. Okay. That means interested stakeholders, and here in the Congo Basin we had a group with stakeholders from Gabon, from Cameroon and from the Congo, a group that developed a standard how to manage the forest, of course based on the international framework given by Pefc. This standard is published when it's approved in consensus, it's published for the country, and now the forest management units can say, okay, we apply this standard and we follow Pefc. That means The forest management unit needs to check the regulations, the requirements of the standard, and have, if necessary, to adjust their operations so that they follow, for example, specific harvesting conditions. Or here in the Congo Basin, I mentioned this morning on a panel, we have specific requirements concerning greenhouse gas emission assessments or mapping with carbon stocks. So this needs to be done by the forest management unit. Then the FMU appoints a so-called certification body. That's an independent organization that is competent to assess that. And this certification body is going to the forest, is doing an on-site audit, checking whether the organization really complies with the requirements, identifies maybe weaknesses, gives recommendations or requests what needs to be changed. And if successful, the FMU gets the okay, that means the Pefc, okay, the certificate, okay. And Pefc is recognizing the certificate, and they can use the claim, they can sell their products, they can sell their timber as Pefc certified.
Okay, when you're talking, I'm thinking about transfer of knowledge. Do you, in Gabon, for instance, are you working in cooperation with some actors to transfer them the knowledge how to keep the forest, how to make sure that they can continue the fight to preserve this environment?
Well, that's a key issue, and I'm very happy that you asked this question. You know, giving a certificate, giving a stamp at the end of the process, it's one thing. Mm-hmm. But again, coming back to what I said earlier, key are people. So if we don't educate people, if we don't organize collaboration between the people to share experience, to share knowledge, to share how to manage forests sustainably, then we are lost and the certification will not be successful. And here in Gabon, we have, again, this very specific case that it's not just Gabon, but that we have this very close cooperation between the different countries in the region. And that's incredible.
Okay, now we have reached the end of our interview. Can you say a last word about the One Forest Summit maybe, and about everything that is done here, your feeling?
My feeling, it's breathtaking. You know, when I arrived yesterday evening from the airport, I was picked up at the airport and got a first idea what kind of organization is behind that. Then this morning, seeing all those people coming here to the conference, to the summit, to listen, to learn, to understand about forestry in the Congo Basin, that's incredible. And it's, again, people. We have to inform decision makers. We have to inform users of the forest, operators in the forest, and it's an incredible opportunity to be here and to follow this summit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berger.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Okay, so we have reached the end of this interview. Keep watching Gabon 24. We're still here at Radisson Hotel for the One Forest Summit. Keep watching. Goodbye.